We're glad to have TICO CEO Richard Smart join us on the pink couch here today. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Suzanne. Pleasure to be here.
And there are so many changes coming down the pipe with TICO, and they are due or overdue, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's been a whirlwind, I guess now 18 months since I joined TICO and took over from my predecessor, Michael Pepper. And it's been a great and challenging ride along the way. We've had some recent announcements that I think are very positive for the industry. The ones that are most visible, of course, are the regulatory changes. That's what's usually on registrant and consumers' minds. Mm-hmm. And we introduced some reg changes, what we call reg changes, earlier this year, a couple of months ago. And at our recent annual general meeting, we were really pleased to have the Ontario government with us. And they announced the complete opening and review of the Travel Industry Act and regulation. A to Z, soup to nuts, the entire act is being opened up for review, something that industry and registrants have been asking for a long, long time. And I'm just pleased to be part of that.
So we are looking and dealing with now with legislation that was introduced initially in...
That's amazing. I mean, the Travel Industry Act was written back in 1974.
Yeah.
TICO came into existence in 1997, and the enabling legislation, the Act as we call it, largely been in place since that time. We have a regulation where there has been some changes over the years. It hasn't stood still over the 18 years, but the overarching Act is long overdue for a change. I think the government realizes that, the registrants have been asking for it, and we're very pleased to be representing industry and taking that forward, working with the government as they lead us through this review.
And what will the process be, and how can the agents and suppliers get involved?
Absolutely, great question. We're in the early days. We just announced it on June 21st at our AGM. The government is in the process of creating a very broad, far-reaching consultation process. So we'll be going out to consumers, we'll be going out to industry, we'll be going out to associations. There will be one-on-one sessions, there'll be small group sessions, town hall sessions, all sorts of ways to reach out. There actually is an email that's live today, Travel Industry Act at ontario.ca, where anybody can make a submission or comments or ask questions of the government. And they're just getting off the ground right now. There's going to be a website, and there'll be a lot more communications around that consultation process coming in the coming weeks and months ahead. We think that this is a large process.
Yes, no kidding.
We think this is going to take probably about 18 months to see it through. So I wouldn't be too concerned about getting in your comments, rushing to get them in. There'll be a process and time to make sure that we hear from as many consumers and registrants as possible.
Now, do you think we can look forward to any major changes? Like what sort of significant things need to be changed, do you think?
Yeah, well, a great question. Again, because the Act is 18 or so years old, everything is on the table. There's no sacred cows here. It would be early for me to speculate, what changes industry and consumers want, but areas like disclosure, our compensation fund is something that's very near and dear to our registrants. There's lots of potential change that we'll see there. E-commerce, my goodness.
Yeah.
If you look at our legislation, when it was written, back then, the internet, and I'm not even sure the internet was even known to any large extent back then.
Oh, no.
And now that is the preference by many consumers in doing their booking. So the whole area of e-commerce and the new channels of distributions and the new products out there, it's a global industry.
Yeah.
And we've got to bring our legislation. We have to modernize it and bring it up to date. So there's all areas are really up for grabs and up for review.
Do you think there's any possibility of going to a consumer pay model?
The infamous consumer pay model. Again, I said no sacred cows. Everything's on the table. I believe we've worked very hard for many years, but I know just in my short time at TICO, trying to raise that consumer awareness. We introduced a new campaign last year.
Yeah.
We moved away from Fantastical. We still do believe our agents and registrants are fantastic, but we wanted to move to a more modern campaign, and we introduced emoticons as a way of getting the message out, particularly maybe to the millennials and the younger generation, and to deliver different types of messages. So we're going to continue with that. But the understanding and knowledge of what's in the act, we're going to really have to sit down and talk to consumers and registrants, and I'm sure consumer pay is going to come up. It's been used in other jurisdictions
Yes,
successfully.
indeed,
There's
yeah.
no reason that it can't work in ours.
So, Richard, always one of the major concerns, of course, for the travel agents and the travel industry suppliers is the regulatory burden. So, is that one of the issues that is going to be discussed?
Right, a great question. Absolutely. You know, I realize, and the government realizes that our registrants face a lot of burden, not just from TICO, but other ministries, other provincial legislation, federal legislation on top of them. There's burden on burden. So one of the goals that the government has expressed is we need to find the right balance. We need to always consider consumer protection as our first and foremost mandate, but we can only do that with a healthy and vibrant industry as well. So we will be looking for opportunities to reduce the burden on registrants and find that optimal balance.
That's good news.
Absolutely.
Very interesting, and we look forward, we'll encourage people to have their say and consider all of the possibilities.
Great.
All
Great.
right. Good to have you here. Come back and tell us when we are into the process a bit. How about that?
I would love to come back.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.